Valley, where at great personal risk amongst grave political violence, he peacefully resisted the Taliban's efforts to shut down schools. He serves as the United Nations Special Advisor on Global Education and is the educational attaché to the Pakistani consulate in Birmingham, United Kingdom. He has two far more important roles than those I have just described to you. One is that he is the husband to Mrs. Yousafzai, who is sitting here in pink, which is his first job. That's the first job. The second, slightly less important job, but which he embraced fully as we will explore, is that he is the father of rather a well-known young lady called Malala Yousafzai. Would you please give him a very warm welcome?
Thank you.
Ziauddin, this book is about your story in as much as it is about Malala's story and your wife's story. And I'd like to start with where your story starts. Who was the young Ziauddin Yousafzai? What was the family that you were born into? What was the situation, the home that you were born into in the Swat Valley in Pakistan?
Thank you, Paul, for a very nice introduction. And so, as Paul mentioned, once upon a time, Malala was my daughter, and now I'm her father. And hardly few people, maybe especially in the patriarchal societies, are known by their fathers, by their daughters. And I'm one of them, and I'm proud of it. So proud of it. I grew up in a family in the northwest of Pakistan. It's called Shangla district, adjacent to Swat Valley. You can say it's Swat Valley. And I was brought up with other 6 siblings. We were 7 in the family, 5 sisters and 2 brothers. And as a child, I was growing up in that family. My father was a very learned person in theology, and he was the prayer leader in the mosque. He was like a scholar. And my mother was illiterate, and we were growing up in this family together, but I could see 2 sets of parenthood under the same roof of the home, of the house. There was one set of parenthood for girls, and there was a different set of parenthood for the boys. My father, I'm so grateful to him because for me, he was an inspiration. He was so keen about my education, and at that time, it was like a step forward for him, because being a Maulana, being a religious scholar, he was not supposed to give me modern education. He was supposed to make me a Maulana, like father, like son. But he was not the father of yesterday. He was a father of tomorrow. That's why he sent me to school to learn mathematics and sciences and languages. So he was so keen about my education, and he used to tell me, look, this world is like an open book. Its nature is like an open book. Read it. So he instilled in me the love of learning. And even I just mentioned to you, Paul, that I had problem of stammering when I talked sometime. And he turned that weakness into power, into strength. So that was his parenthood for me, but for my sisters. And I should not blame him much because at that time it was not a social norm to send girls to school. For my sisters, the only dream my parents had to get them married as early as possible. So my 5 sisters, like all of them were married from age 14 to age 16, 17, and right now they have 35 children. So you can understand that having not receiving education, they went to an oblivion. And then later in my life, when I was 19, 20 years old, one of my cousins was bound in a forced marriage. And I became more conscious to this discrimination, inequality, because I myself was bullied for stammering and my dark color in the class and in my peers in the community. So I hated like discrimination. I hated unfair treatment. And I always believed in positive revenge. Not to revenge the people who target you, rather revenge the very evil that victimize people. And that was why that when I saw my cousin in the forced marriage, bonded marriage, I became more vocal. And she could not get out of that marriage bond because of the social norms.
Quite.
So it is mentioned in the book, and that changed me so much that I became very mindful and thoughtful about these inequalities in the family, in the patriarchal families. Like when I used to take my mother to the doctor, so the doctor on prescription used to write, mother of Mr. Ziauddin Yousafzai. If my father took her, the doctor used to write, wife of Mr. Ruhul Amin, who was my father. So I was very conscious of all these things, and I am thankful to my father who educated me, and education changed me. It transformed me into the kind of person that I am. It made my inner being beautiful, my inner being beautiful. And that was the reason that I thought that if I am a husband, I will be equal partner of my wife. So she's here, she's a wife, but she's equal partner. And if I am a father, I will be the kind of father that what my father could not give to his daughters, I will give it to my daughter. That is the background story.
That's a good answer and a good mode of thought.
Thank you.
There's something you've missed out, though, I think, which I'd like to talk about now, which is the other aspect of your education, not your school education, but the fact that you are the son of 3 mothers, that you were brought up by 3 different women.
Yes.
And I think this has played a very big role in your mindset about the equality, gender equality in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us, please, how you came to have 3 mothers?
So my biological mother, which is God, the mother who brought me into this world, God bless her soul, she died in 1985 when I was 16 years old. And then my father married, rather, we arranged marriage for him. So my second mother, who was taking, and she's still alive, she's in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. And then she, I have the kindness and love of my second mother. But a very important person who I called mother was the lady who took care of me when I lost my mother at 16 years of age. And her husband took me to her home when I was in college, and she took a great care of me. And she had 2 sons, and she made me her 3rd son. So she's not in this world now, but I'm so grateful to all my mothers, especially to the one who was my mentor.
It's a nice thing to have done. So your father was very keen that you were educated. He knew that your escape from the life that he had created, if escape is the right word, was going to be through education.
Yeah.
And you were going to be a doctor. What happened?
Yeah. My father was very keen that I should be a doctor because in rural areas in Pakistan, now things are changing. There are many doctors, but 40 years ago, there were few doctors, like 1 doctor for a huge population. And it was a very prestigious job. So my father wanted to see me as a doctor, but I was very poor in mathematics and science subjects, so I could not become, I was not that stuff. I was more meant to be a teacher. And my father then lost interest in my education. Yeah. And he wanted me to be employed as a clerk somewhere or to join a job somewhere. But I told him that the spark of learning that you have ignited in me, it could not be extinguished now. And that's why I believe that if we have parents or teachers who inspire us, that's a great job. Then we go and we move forward. So he wanted me to become a doctor, but I could not.
But did you take to teaching? The spark of inspiration that teachers give, were you able to impart that during your career as a teacher? Did you enjoy being...
Yes, of course. Like after completion of my education, I wanted to be a teacher in a government school, but it didn't work.
Right.
And then I thought that why not start a school of my own, like an independent school where I would be able to make it as a platform for social change.
Yes.
And I started that school from 3 children. And when Malala was attacked in 2012, so I started in 1994, and in 2012, I had 1,100 children in my school, 500 girls and 600 boys.
But that was your choice. You had made that happen because that was not normal. There weren't
No,
many schools that had that gender divide.
I should say, I mean, sometimes we get perceptions because of one story which is not completely told. So education in the Swat Valley was very common. Even girls' education was there. We had great schools. Like there were 500 schools for private schools, independent school, and some like more than 1,500 government schools.
Right.
And there were like girls' schools were less than boys' school, but the girls' schools were there. So I was not the first person who started a girls' school.
Yes.
Or my daughter was not the first girl who went to the school, though my daughter was the first girl in our tribe, in our generation, who went to school.
Quite.
And who was being educated very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being educated with the view to having a career over and above being a wife. You mean seriously in that way, yes?
Seriously in the way that
she would have a job,
like
she
we
would have a
have
career.
different layers when it comes to girls. So some people say, girls doesn't need any education because they will be just married to another family, and their primary job is to give birth to children, to give services to the husband, and to cook, and to wash the clothes. That's it. Why should she read? And some parents who are a little, better than them, they say, she should be educated for primary, that's enough that she can read and write. And then some say, she may go to the high school to be a good mother.
A good mother.
To be a good mother. And then so on and so forth. I believed in Malala that she should be what she wants to be. And that's why, before she was born, I had a name for her. And it was Malala. And you might have heard the story of Malala of Maiwand. Malala of Maiwand was the girl who, in the Second Anglo-Afghan War, when the Afghan fighters were fleeing from the battlefield, and they had lost the war almost, this young girl who was almost 17 years old, she went to the top of a hill, and she raised her voice. And she can't beg the fighters that this is the time, if you don't sacrifice this day, maybe somebody's saving you for a shameful day. And she then took the flag, and even she gave her life on that battlefield. For me, the great inspiration in this name was the identity, because Malala of Maiwand was known by her own name, and she had a voice.
Yes.
And few days after, as I mention always, that my cousin, coincidentally, he brought the family tree. And when I looked at the family tree, at that time I had one child, and there was my daughter. And when I looked at the family tree, and I was seeing that these were all men, fathers, great-grandfathers, and so on and so forth, 300 years. And there was no girl. And I picked up my pen, and I drew a line and wrote Malala. And my cousin he had a grimace on his face and looking at me, what this crazy man is doing. I reciprocated with a smile, and I meant it. So I believed that, yes, she will have her own identity.
Right.
I never thought that I'll be known by her. Okay.
No, well, we'll come to that in a
But
minute.
I love that, it's fine.
So, to just paint the picture for us, please, Ziauddin, you are already putting yourself forward as a father, a different father. Malala's born. As a teacher, you're different. You're becoming a gateway to women, to girls, having a life beyond being a mother. Yes. You're breaking with tradition in your local area in Pakistan. So already you're a disruptor, as we say now.
Yes.
With a very good heart and a very clear message How much resistance did you have then, before even the Taliban came into the area? How much resistance did you have from your contemporaries saying, why are you doing this? You are breaking with tradition, you are breaking with the faith of masculine, paternalistic,
Yes,
male
of course.
power. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I totally understand
Thank
you.
you.
You're very articulate. Thank you.
Not so much.
I basically, it's in this book that when you stand for a change, especially the change that you want to see against the social taboos or social norm, the social norms and social taboos that go against the basic human rights of human beings. When you stand against status quo, and especially in patriarchal societies, the first person you come across is you. Because you are the part of that society. You are being brought up in that society. And you see things like when I was a boy, I might have enjoyed that favoritism towards me. When my sisters were getting tea without a milk and cream, I would have said, oh, I'm special. So that is the problem, that when you grow up in those norms, you are very comfortable to live in that. Right. So the difficult part, that the first person you have to defeat is you. And once you defeat your old self, then this change starts. And in the beginning, like one of my nephews told to my wife, who is here, Turpekai, that, look, some people in the community, my friends, they tell me that your cousin Malala is now 13 years old, and we see her very visible on media. She gives talk in conferences, in seminars. This is absolutely unacceptable for our Pashtun traditions. And then she could not tell me directly because he was scared of me, that he will be very angry. And when she told me, I told her that let him know that he should not poke his nose in our family affairs. And that nephew is a big supporter of Malala. He became.
Now.
Yes, now. And even before that, when we were in Pakistan, my cousin who brought the family tree, later Taran, when we were in Pakistan and Malala became very popular and she became a role model for the girls in Pakistan, he wrote a long poem of praise.
Oh, good.
So I have seen these changes in my life.
That's a big change. In one
Yes,
lifetime, that's a big, big change. Can we deal with the difficult stuff now? When the Taliban started to move into your area, what were you thinking? What was in your heart? What were you expecting? How did you prepare?
So let me tell you a little bit the background of the Swat Valley. Swat is a very beautiful valley. It's amazing because Swat was merged in Pakistan in 1969. So Pakistan came into being in 1947, and Swat merged in Pakistan in 1969, the year I was born. So Swat is very beautiful, and the Queen called it, when she went to Swat Valley, she called it the Switzerland of the East.
Exactly.
So it's such a beautiful place, paradise on earth. And we had a great life. We had a great life until 2002, 2003. And when Taliban, like after 9/11, when Talibanization started in Pakistan, in the tribal belt of Pakistan, and Taliban gradually moved from the tribal area towards Swat, I told people right in the beginning, when they started, that this is horrible, this is unacceptable. They started a heinous propaganda against girls' education on their FM radio. And then later on, in 2006 and 2007, they started destroying schools. And they destroyed more than 400 schools. And in 2008, at the end of 2008, they literally, on FM radio, they threatened people that if no girl is allowed to go to school, whether old or young. And that was the time that our normal, beautiful family life changed drastically. It changed everything for us, not only for us, but for 1.4 million people of the Swat Valley. And then it was the moment that I, from like a teacher, I changed into a fighter for the right of education.
Right.
And my daughter, Malala, who used to give small speeches in school, co-curricular activities, like as my father wanted me to be a speaker, I wanted my daughter to be a speaker. She changed from like an ordinary and average student to a fighter for the right of education. So they changed everything. They changed everything. And I mean, if we just imagine that how can one live in such a situation when your daughter is not allowed to be going to school, when your wife and mother and sisters are told that you are not allowed to be going to the marketplace, when even your clothes, they are controlled by some bigots, it becomes so difficult. Then you have two options: to live with dignity.
Yep.
With your basic human rights, or to give your life for that. And I always tell people ask me that what inspired you to be the fighter? And I said, rights. Your rights inspire you. If you believe in your human dignity, you have to stand. And then you see that few of us spoke against Talibanization, ban on education. And Malala is, we see in English, like father, like son, but in our family, in our home, it was like father, like daughter.
Right.
She also spoke, and she did BBC blog, and she told the world what was happening in the Swat Valley. Because the first thing we do when we have some trouble and problem, we write our story. We tell our story. I mean, the first thing, an oppression, whatever kind of oppression it is, if it is from state, it is from some bigots, from under any name, in any name. If it is in a workplace, the first thing, you go and you literally, genuinely, authentically tell the story. And when she told the story, I mean, it changed the people's perception in Pakistan and all around the world.
And around the world, yes,
Yes.
quite. Then, so you knew you were in danger, you and Malala and
Yes.
your family.
Yes,
You
especially
knew,
I was in danger.
especially you.
Yeah.
But then this awful thing happens
Yes.
that we know about,
Yes.
which gives me cold shivers as I think of it even now. I dread to think what you think. The first thing that happens is, of course, you are terrified, you are her father, you are her protector. She is your daughter. Various other things happen. She's airlifted out. Can you talk us through those first few days of when this happens, what you are thinking, one of towards the Taliban, and two about Malala and about your job as her father, those 3 or 4 days before she was airlifted out and eventually came to the UK?
Yeah.
Do you mind talking about that?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Thank you.
The audience would like to hear about it. It's fine. Really, it's very retrospection of all those tragic days is very traumatic and really painful, because I took it for granted that according to our social norms, which we say, or according to our traditions, even in a fight, in a conflict, you are not supposed to go after a girl and after a child.
It would be you that was the target.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I remember that my wife and Malala herself, they were very, very concerned, and they always thought about me that I should not be targeted. And in the worst days of Talibanization, I remember that I used to leave my home at night time and coming back early in the morning, because in those days they used to pick people from their homes.
Yes.
And get them killed and put them in a square. And I did not want to be killed in front of my wife and children, because I thought that if they kill me, I'll be gone.
Yep.
When you are gone, you don't feel anything. That's it. But I was thinking that if I'm gone, my family won't be able to come out of this trauma. So I used to go out of the home and come back in the morning, and my wife put a ladder at the back of the house that if they come, I will open the door and then I will tell him, like she made her own plan.
Okay.
And then thieves came when we were not in home, and they stole our TV through that ladder. But anyway, these were the things that were happening in those days, and then we're not expecting that happened. She was attacked, and it was like we were, as a family, it was so painful time for all of us. Even I forgot to cry. I didn't cry for the first 12 hours or 13 hours because I forgot to cry. I was like being absorbed by some, as they say, black hole. That
Yes.
I became like locked. And I also, what a sensible person, when anything bad happens, so the first person he asks is himself or herself. And I was these thoughts that, could I have stopped her? And if it happened, so it would have been different if I had stopped her, or if I didn't had encouraged to be the girl that she was.
Yeah.
And then I asked my wife that night. And she was very angry. She told me, no. I know you.
Sorry, just be very specific here.
Yes.
What was because as much as I'm enjoying your story, the one story I have not heard is your wife's.
Yes.
So I hate to do this, but could you please speak for your wife? What did your wife say about this? What was by way of the question you asked her, what was that question? What was the conversation?
My and Torpeke's life story is quite fascinating, I'll say, because I married her because she was beautiful. She's still very beautiful.
She still is beautiful, I have to say. She has the most amazing eyes.
Apart from my sisters, she was the first girl who came in my life. And I was 13 or 14 years old that she used to come to our aunt's home. And we had exchange of sights, we could not express, there is no dating in our society. And this strong feeling was there that I like her and she likes me. And then we had an engagement. But later on, when we got married, 5 years later, I realized, not 5 years later, sorry, almost 15 years later. So when we got married and we started living together, I realized, she's not only beautiful, she has an amazing smartness, intelligence. And I explored this women power in her.
Quite.
And later on in my daughter. And then after marrying her, when I had any problem in my life, whether it was in school and my social activities, the first person I went to and I shared my problem was Torpekai. Because in our society, usually, now things are changing, but at that time, some of my friends were very critical about me. Because the husband who is like taking advice of wife in everything, they are not supposed to be brave husbands, especially a husband with mustaches like me. They should be very controlling. But I was very feminist with my long mustaches. So I always asked her, and at that night, when I asked her, and she told me, don't blame yourself. You should not be repenting anything. Those people should repent who attacked her.
Yes.
They are the criminals. You stood for the right of education. Malala stood for the right of education. And she told me that I wanted to speak, but I could not. And you were speaking for me as well. So God will save her and be strong. That was that night message. And I didn't ask anyone after that. Yeah.
I can't imagine how that conversation went in the time.
Yeah.
I hope it's all right to ask this question, but we're here in the United Arab Emirates. And the United Arab Emirates played an extraordinary role in the rescue of Malala. Can you explain how that happened?
Yeah, so her basic life-saving surgery was done in Peshawar in Pakistan. I have dedicated my book to the two doctors thank you, Don. I have dedicated my book to the two doctors, to Dr. Colonel Muhammad Junaid and Dr. Mumtaza Ali, who performed life-saving surgery on Malala in Pakistan after she was shot. With the grace of God, they saved Malala's life. So these two doctors saved her life, and then she had complex surgeries which could not be done in Pakistan, like her facial nerve was cut down and her eardrum was broken. So for further surgeries, she was brought to the UK, And I must be thankful and always grateful to the royal family and to the UAE government, who just straight away they offered that she should come to the UAE for treatment. But if she doesn't come here, you don't want to send her here. So the air ambulance is there, stand by. Wherever you want to take her, it's there. And then thankfully, she was airlifted from Pakistan to UAE by the support of the UAE government. No, from Pakistan to UK.
To the UK. So the UAE very kindly offered the air ambulance and made no stipulation that she had to be treated here. It's an extraordinary act of humanitarian generosity. And it makes me feel very warmly about the UAE. Right, we have to end quite shortly. There are two little questions I want to ask you before we open to questions from the floor. And we're going to do them in order, and we're going to do it carefully. Could you please explain when, as you were growing up as a child, how women made tea in Pakistan?
I mean, Turpeke can explain it better than me because I didn't make a lot of tea. And when we came to the UK, I used to make tea and breakfast in Pakistan when she used to be ill or busy in other stuff. But mostly, I always saw my mother making tea for our family, and then my sister-in-law making tea. Tea making is quite a job. It's a beautiful thing to do. So the first thing you do that you clean the part where you want to make tea. There should be no stuff in it, like very clean. And then we put water and pour water in it. And then the water is boiled by itself without pouring anything. And then we add tea leaves. And then it's boiled. And then after tea leaves boiled well, then we pour some milk. And then on the ladle, you know ladle?
Right.
We just stir it and just taking up and pouring it down. You can understand? Yes. And later then you add sugar. If you don't want sugar, like people in UK, they take a lot of chocolates. They don't like sugar. So this is how the tea is made in Pakistan.
The point is, it is made in your time by women for the men. The men never make it, and it is an act of obeisance, if you will. So now I come to the final question.
Yes.
What is your proudest moment, Mr. Yousafzai?
Yeah. Thank you. So many proudest moments. I mean, you may be thinking that the moment when Malala won the Nobel Peace Prize, of course, that was the proudest moment of my life. Great moment. When the girl who was speaking for 50,000 girls, and when Taliban banned girls' education, and later on, when she stood back to the podium in the UN, and then at that time she was speaking again for 130 million girls, that was the proudest moment, one of the proudest moments.
One of.
But the moment that made me cry, really cry, was the moment that when my wife Torpikai and Malala and Khushal, Malala's brother, we went to Lady Margaret Hall. It's a college in Oxford where Malala is there right now. She's doing her PPE. So it was like an introductory meeting with the principal and some of the staff members. I will make the long story short, and after the meeting, we went to...
You can make it as long as you like, believe you me.
We went to a room, and these men and Turpeke and we were all there, and she had some questions from the faculty members. I had some questions. And meanwhile, while we were standing, the principal, he went to the tea machine, and I was just looking at him, and I thought that when he fills his cup, then I'll go. But when he made the tea, he just moved, and he just started going across to the other side of the room, and he handed over the cup to Malala. Oh my God. Oh my God. Beautiful moment.
The principal of Lady Margaret Hall at Oxford University made a cup of tea for Malala and handed it to her before her father, before her mother. That was a generational change across a massive divide.
It's maybe usual thing, but for me it was unusual.
Yes. Yes.
And you understand that.
Good principle. And just explain why she's reading PPE and why she's at Lady Margaret Hall.
I mean, she can better answer about it, but I'll share with you a story. She's very powerful, and we always debate, and we have differences on things. But we have, I mean, I must say one thing here.
Please.
To the end that we have great organizations for women empowerment and equality, like Equality Now, UN Women, and then movement like suffragette in the 20th century, Me Too now. But I personally, my experience tells me that every family has an opportunity to have a moment for equality inside the small platform of family. So this book is basically a family story. And every family, like every man and a woman, we have an opportunity to build equality within families. This is the basic institution. And if we build this moment here from the families, we will have wonderful societies in the coming days. So that's why I believe in it. And you asked about, connecting to that. So we have, when we were, in Swat, we were poor family. Financially, we were very poor. Torpeke knows that I sold her jewelry for the teacher's salaries in the beginning. I bought it back later on. You should not claim now, okay? Even we didn't have eggs or milk in the morning tea, but I always tell that our family was very rich in terms of family values. Love, respect, tolerance, listening to each other. It was small democracy within the family. And that was the beauty of our life. So we have a lot of fun within family. And when Malala was going to Oxford, so before moving there, I just told you this story. And she asked me, because she was in all-girls school in UK, NH Boston, where we live. And she told me, Father, you know that now after 1 or 2 weeks, I will be moving to Oxford. And I have been all the time in these girls' schools, but there will be boys, and I'll be inviting maybe my people. There will be men also from my organization or my friends. So what do you think about it? And like all fathers, stereotype, I answered, oh, Johnny, I call her Johnny, like soulmate. Johnny, it's fine, I trust you. And you know what she replied? She said, don't trust me. Don't trust me. So if we go, she catches when she sees anything that is not about freedom or like inequality or something. Anyway, thank you. I think I left your point, but she is studying PPE, philosophy, politics, and economics. And maybe she is thinking of Harvard after this. And what she will do with her life, I think it's absolutely about her. It's her decision. Once upon a time in Swat Valley, I was a leader, a small leader, I can say, of my little community in the Swat Valley. And she was my follower. And now she is the leader, and I'm one of her millions of followers, and I'm proud of it.
I can't think of a better place to end it, and I'm afraid we do have to end it. Would you please give enormous thanks, not only to Ziauddin Yousafzai, but also his wife, the extraordinary Mrs. Yousafzai, sitting in the front row. Malala's mother and father, thank you so much, both of you, very much indeed. Ziauddin will be signing books just here. I'm afraid we don't have time for questions from the floor. I'm told, no, we're signing there. Ziauddin will be signing books in that corner there. Please feel free to buy a book from him. Get him to sign, and you can ask the question you would have asked him otherwise. Please ask while you're signing the books. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you,
Ziauddin, so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.